to bore you guys there at home. Obviously, the all the shootings that have been going on include a gun. They all have a handgun or an AR or you name it. They include some kind of firearm. What is your take on firearms? One, do you believe that maybe a Christian should own a fire gun? Do you believe that it's okay to self-defense? And I know that's sort of a huge bucket of worms that we can get into, but what's your take on that on guns and firearms?
Well, I think it's a little bit hard to really put this overall blanket over all of it and say this is what should be done and this is what the Bible says in regards to that. If we're completely against guns, then obviously we would be against police officers, and we would be against the Army of the United States. And some Christians are. Some Christians believe that policemen shouldn't have guns either, and that Christians should not go into the Army. But there's not really a strong biblical foundation to speak of that, or to go either way. I think it does have to do a lot with culture, and it has to do a lot with our conviction in growing up in the church. But you have countries in South America where some of these countries, they don't have guns and they don't allow guns, and a lot of our Hispanic community, they see guns as something bad because their society or their culture or their nation traditionally never allowed guns. So guns, even outside of Christianity, guns were a bad thing. So when you come to the United States, when guns is so much of the American culture, just for hunting and for sport, and it's the culture is vastly different from that of some of these Latin American countries that never had really access to guns unless it was illegal guns. So I think that there's definitely a culture issue there. Now I do feel that there is, and might differ a little bit from what you guys think. I'm not sure what you guys think completely. It could it can be a dangerous thing, the types of guns that we get, and I feel that maybe it's an issue of wisdom. If you have a automatic weapon that shoots 30 shots a second, these war-like guns, to me, it's hard to make the case that it's for protection and it's for sport, or it's for just for personal reasons, unless you're in the Army or you're in a war. There's certain kinds of guns that are not very practical. So I definitely think that there's a lot of types of guns that obviously are created for mass killings. There are certain types of guns that are created to kill a lot quickly, and I think that's where the moral issue more or less should fall on, more than the issues of guns itself, because obviously guns itself, talking about the more regular guns, you could argue the issue of protection, you could argue the issue of a police officer, you could argue the issue of just a countryman, going out and hunting, and and I think that's why I think the debate kind of goes into a bunch of different roads there, but the big ones for me are that whether it's a warlike gun that can kill 30, 40 people in 5-10 seconds, or if it's something that's a little bit more personal. Now with that, I do have to say, I know a lot of Christians, and my wife is actually one of them who's completely against the idea of guns, and she has a really strong feeling against guns, both spiritually and practically, and I do think that part of it is cultural. I've talked to some of people in countries that guns are not allowed, and they just kind of wonder why Christians are even considering getting any sort of gun. And I understand their cultural background, guns away and now taking the Army's guns away, and without being this domino effect of issues that can be brought up.
I think it definitely, and just I'm going to give a quick 2 minutes, and then I'm going to hand it to Heather so we can wrap this up. But on the issue of guns, I believe that in order for an individual to own a gun, I believe in background checks. I believe in there has to be some kind of background check in order for you to get a gun. And a lot of the misinformation that's out there is that a lot of these background checks aren't in place, and they are in place. I mean, you literally cannot get a gun without a background check. The second thing would be, like, I would, automatic assault style rifles or guns are not, they're not sold. They're really not sold. They're unless you're getting one illegally and criminals will break laws. You absolutely can. You cannot purchase an automatic gun in the United States, but you can make modifications to an AR or another type of gun that would make a 5-round magazine into a 30-round magazine, and I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, Juan. I think that's overkill in a way or another. That's why would you need 30 rounds? If somebody's coming at you, you're not going to need 30 rounds. You won't have enough time to release 30 rounds. So in a sense, I believe with the gun topic, I think America sort of has to get to the point where we do need we need to reinforce the gun laws that we already have, and not impose more gun laws on the population, because we start getting into areas where who chooses what guns and who chooses what not guns people are able to purchase. So obviously that's one of those topics that certain people have different backgrounds. I myself never owned a gun before, and my wife, my suegro, my father-in-law, had a bunch of guns, so she was used to being around guns. So it's definitely a cultural thing. It depends on where you come from. So that can be sort of a thing that people can automatically say no, or people could be very open to. So just with Heather's going to wrap it up for us, and go ahead, Heather.
Well, I think you both kind of hit the nail on the head with that one. As you mentioned, the culture does have a lot to do with it. I'm on the opposite side of Francisco. My wife had never been around guns, and she was strongly very, very against them as well. Not happy at all when I bought my first gun. And it's a matter of getting to know it really, and getting to know what you're handling. Because I took her out to the gun range a few times. She got to fire it, and once she got to know it, she's gotten pretty proficient at it. For those that follow me or that have me on Facebook or Instagram, you guys will see that she's out there shooting pretty often now, and she shoots all kinds of guns, shotguns,
and
rifles.
She's like this big too, so she's tiny. She's like 100 pounds, and that's it.
So yeah, she's much more comfortable now. So it's definitely a matter of educating yourself. If it's something that you're thinking about, and definitely be respectful of your significant other. If they're not happy about it, definitely take that into account and talk to them and really consider that. But yeah, I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and me personally, obviously I don't have guns. It's not something that
we're going shooting point. Nancy, you too.
We gotta take Nancy shooting.
Next live vlog will be at the gun range with Nancy.
There you
go. And it's not something that I've really been super interested in, but I have seen, I think, just a cultural little difference. I grew up in California, in Los Angeles, and I know a lot of people that have grown out outside the city actually have a lot more guns than people in the city. And usually, the view in the city a lot of times was the bad people have guns, and I think that perception is cultural, like I said, and it has to change a little bit. But I do feel that it's a very a personal thing. Obviously, it's also a political thing, in other countries, especially Latin American countries, some communist countries. The reason they took guns away from people was so that the government could have more control over the people. And one of the reasons it's a right in our country is because we believe in accountability, and we believe that the people should still have some degree of power and authority. So it's definitely a political issue in terms of a free country in a free world that we live in. So there's that issue. We cannot take the political aspect away from it. But in terms of having one and owning one personally, it's definitely more of a cultural thing and kind of where you grew up and what your context has been and things of that setting, of that nature.
Something I did want to mention real quick. Do we have any comments? Or anything else?
No.
We're good? Okay. So just one more thing I did want to mention. After the shooting in Orlando, the FBI did take a lot of heat because they were warned a couple of times by Disney World, and by the gun shop that this guy was looking suspicious and he was up to no good, and it looks like the FBI did nothing basically. So they took a lot of heat for that. And one thing that the FBI director said that I feel is very true is he talked about the protection. He says, well, if you want cars, if you want 60, 70 miles or even 75 miles speed limits, there's going to be some casualties. And as a matter of fact, right now in our country, we have more kills from auto accidents than for guns. So if you want freedom, then there's going to be casualties. Now, of course, that should never be the case, right? So, but what he said afterwards is what kind of got my attention. He says people are quick, when something like this happens, people are quick to jump and give up a piece of their freedom for the illusion of safety. So it's really an illusion, and this is the FBI director that said this. So that kind of got my attention a lot, because it's true. As a society, we're ready to give up our freedom as long as we feel like we're protected. But in reality, the bad guy doesn't care about laws, right? It doesn't matter to them. But Juan, let's wrap it up. I know we've made it long. We don't want to bore you guys. Juan, why don't you give us the information for the church so that everybody who's listening can know where the church is? Give them your website also, because you got some pretty awesome blogs on there.
Yeah, we have some blogs at jdacuna.org, jdacuna.org, or you can visit our church website at Hope City Dallas, and you can get the link to the blog as well, hopecitydallas.org, or in Español, ciudadesperanza.org. And we're a church here in the Farmers Branch area, Northeast Dallas. And we have, we're here to serve. Anything you want, you can have all the information on the website. We're here Wednesdays and Sundays, basically, and Mondays apparently too, at 9 p.m. No, just kidding. But you can get all our information on the website. You can go through my blogs. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask questions or send a message. And we're here to serve.
Awesome. So thank you guys for spending the time with us. If you're watching this live, awesome. If you're watching a rerun, that's awesome too. Feel free to leave us a comment, send us a message there on our Facebook page. You can also email us at godgunsamerica01@gmail.com if you guys have any comments, suggestions. If you agree, if you disagree, send them in. We're more than happy to reply with some input. Thank you again, Juan. Eda, thanks a bunch.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for the assistance that we have back there. We have a live studio.
Amazing crew.
We have a live studio audience back there of 2 people. So thank you guys. You guys have a blessed night and have a good one.